Banking meeting to order, if you will, and I want to, before we get started, I want to tell you, in your rules on the quorum, that should have been a 5 and not a 6. In your rules, that should have been a 5 members and not a 6 members. If you all take a minute to look over that before we get started. And I want to welcome our new members, Senator Parks. Here, glad you're here. She said she earned this by rite of passage last year, working through this. We're glad to have you here. And Senator Harbin, we're glad to have you here. And Senator Mangum, who doesn't know where the meeting room is yet, so if somebody sees him in the hall, remind him that it's on 450, and he's new here also. So we're glad to have Randall with us, Senator. And so if you will, let's take a quick minute to move forward here. I need a motion on the rules, if you all are satisfied with them. The only thing's changed is it has 6 on it, it should have been 5.
You need a motion?
Yes, sir. No, sir, no motion, just to pass it. On 5, with 5, motion with 5. Move to pass with 5. Any discussion on that? In a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. And I want to welcome my new vice chairman who's changed places with Senator Kennedy. We've got Senator Hodges here, who is a true banker that I'm not sure any of us are. I just owe banks. I'm not a true banker. I just owe banks. But Mike is a true banker who can give us knowledge and tuition that we need to know. We appreciate that.
Significant.
Well, I won't say that, but Senator Kennedy is now secretary, so we know where the money is going to be right now. We got that all friends out. Well, welcome Senator Hodges to be our vice chairman so you can handle these meetings. Anybody else got anything else before we get started? Glad to have y'all. Senator Sonia, good to see you over there, babe. All right, let's see. We got Russ Goodman, Senator Goodman, Senate Bill 119. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 119, a pretty simple bill. Down in my part of the world, we have quite a few manufactured homes, and currently, if you're going to have the manufactured home turned into real property, you have to apply with a certificate of permanent location with the DOR, and you also have to get the lender to sign off on it. And what we're seeing is a lot of times it's taking a pretty good time period sometimes to get that through the process, and it's slowing it down for some of our folks. And I'm trying to help these folks because if you have a mobile home and you do not have it turned into real property, you're looking at only 15-year amortizations at as much as 14%. The average is probably more along the lines of 12.5%. But once you turn it into real property, you can get a traditional mortgage at 8% at 30 years. The average price of a mobile home is $154,000, whereas the average price of a stick-built home is $380,000. If you look at the average median income in the state of Georgia is $74,000. The difference in a year between those two payments equates to about $9,200 a year for that family. And so that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help these folks, trying to streamline the process for them so that they can hopefully get more favorable terms and hopefully have a little more money in their pocket and be able to help carry the kids on vacation.
Thanks, Senator, for bringing this bill. I like the bill. I got a couple of questions, and I'll open up other questions.
Sure.
Does codes change? Like, for example, when you buy a modular home or a mobile home, those they come in with HWA seal, so the inspector never walks inside. All he does is check the outside of it to make sure your HVAC and other things are hooked up on the outside. Your water, your plumbing, your sewer is hooked up. He doesn't go inside, doesn't do any inspections whatsoever, and that's personal property. When you change this to a real property, will it have to go through county or city codes inspection at that point?
Well, Senator, when you apply through DOR, you have to have, it has to be anchored down and the wheels have to be off. It has
Totally
to be,
understand, yes, sir.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm with you 100% there.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it used to be they probably do better in wind than some houses do now.
Yes, sir.
And I want to help them. Just want to make sure I don't want to get caught up in a codes violation that now the county can come back and say, well, you've got to go through codes. And if something's not up to whatever the county thinks it is, they make them redo that. I just didn't know how you.
Yeah, these are built to code, so I don't think that'll be an issue.
Okay. When they convert it from personal property to real property, normally a modular home or double wide or single wide, whatever you want to call it, mobile home, has to have a seal or a sticker every year. from the county or the respective
Yes, sir. I
There-
think, Mr. Chairman, don't they call that a stamp? Isn't that what they call
stamp,
them?
thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
whatever, you know, on the window, 24, 25, you know, all the lineup. That will go away, I'm assuming, under the bill. Once it,
Yes, sir, that's right. The county will no longer have the stamp, but by turning it into real property, it's going to increase the value of it, and so it actually should help the counties as far as their tax digest.
and I got one last question for you. I really want to help. I'm not trying to confuse this. I really want to help.
Yes, sir.
In a lot of counties, most of these mobile homes are on possibly a well and septic tank. Counties have, like, for example, I checked my county ordinance. They allow 2 per acre. You got to have so much road frontage on the front of it. If these mobile homes were in an area where they were considered a mobile home park and they were closer in density together, does that affect them now with the counties when they go to be, will they be able to do that under real property versus under like a mobile home type park where they could put more density per acre? Is that, do you see any of that popping up?
I don't think so, but I think that gets more into the local codes of the local governing bodies there, is what I would imagine.
Question from the committee. What number are you, Mr. Chairman, over there?
11.
Recognize you for a question, Ms. Hodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the bill. One question, lines 86 through 91. Basically, it says when you've gone through all this and your mobile homes become a part of the real property as provided in the law, it shall be unlawful for any person to remove such home from the real property except with the written consent of the owner, and that if you do, you can be guilty of a misdemeanor of a high and aggravated nature. And the only 2 reasons I can think of somebody removing one would be to, 1, steal it, or 2, defraud the mortgage company if you were the owner and did it. Do we have, is that enough of a
I'm not sure, Senator. This is, as you can tell, it's not underlined, so this is actually already in code now. So this isn't changing any aspect of that. So apparently that was already in Georgia law.
If I understand you correctly, Senator Hodges, you're saying if they could literally move it during the night?
Yeah,
Yeah, if it was,
I mean, that's just an observation.
yeah, I see where you're going with it. I know the answer to it.
Sir?
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, like I say, this is already a part of Georgia law. I would tell you this, anybody that could go in there,
Theft by conversion, I guess you're saying.
right, if you're able to go in there in the night and, after these things have been anchored down and the wheels have been taken off and all the electrical's hooked up and the plumbing's hooked up and everything, you're pretty stealth.
It becomes an RV then.
That's right. Yes, sir, that's right, Mr. Chairman.
Or your name is Helene. Yeah.
Senator, hold on a minute. I'm sorry, go ahead. No, you please finish up.
No, I just said, or your name is Helene,
Yeah, 100%.
but that's okay. I'm good.
Senator Randall, you were going to get fined for being late. What number are you over there? 4?
I apologize, Mr. Chair.
That's right. Go ahead, man.
I just wanted to know, have the Georgia Realtors taken a position on this bill?
Yes, so the realtors, my understanding is the realtors are fine with it as well as the bankers, the different banking associations as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Anybody else on the committee got anything? We'll open it up. Anybody? Do we have anybody signed up? You want to?
I was just going to ask a question.
What number are you there? Number 8.
As I'm reading this on page 2, line 18, it's subject to the motor vehicle certificate. When it comes in, it's coming in as a trailer per se on that. And then, once it's attached to the ground, then it's going to go, and you're going to convert it to this permanent as far as that portion. I'm going to ask this, the taxes, when it, and you may not know, just curious, when it's brought in, you pay taxes, I assume, as you would like you're buying an RV trailer or whatever it is. And then once it's permanently attached, it becomes, you have property tax on it at that point in time. Is that how you
Yes, sir,
understand
it's treated just like any other home.
it? Just like
Yes,
any
sir.
other home? Okay, just curious.
The main thing that I'm trying to do is just trying to help folks. There's a lot of difference, for a lot of our, families. when you start looking at 15-year amortizations at as much as 14% interest versus 30-year amortizations at 8% interest, and what that means to those families, and especially in light of, the economy that we're living in today, just trying to help folks.
Any more questions from the committee? Anything? Did anyone have anybody signed up that want to speak for the bill or for or against the bill? Anybody out there, if you didn't sign up, anybody in the audience? Well, since we don't have anybody who wants to speak to the bill, I guess we look at the pleasure of the committee here on this bill, unless anybody has more questions. If you
Pass, Mr. Chair.
have a motion to pass, Senator, got a motion and a second with Senator Hodges over there. Any more discussion on this bill? All in favor, please raise your hand. It passed unanimous. Thank you, Senator Goodman,
Thank you,
for bringing
Mr.
the bill.
Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you.
I think it's gonna help with affordable housing.
Exactly.
If there is such a thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll take a minute, guys. I forgot to introduce you all in the audience to two people in my office that keeps us going strong. I think you probably know Miss Elizabeth here, Mrs. Bennett, and Miss Isabel Crosby back here. Let me tell you something. Our admin in this office in this Capitol make our day. Without them, we could not function. No, I really appreciate it. I'm sure every senator up there appreciates their people. But thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Couldn't do it. Now we have a little banking bill coming up here. We have we do this quite often, everything. Mr. Bo Fears, he'll be here. And I see Representative Bruce Williams, he's here with us. This should be very entertaining. It's only probably 150 to 300 pages long, I'm not sure. Come on up here, y'all just take 2 and 3 there if you don't mind. If you don't mind there. Welcome, both of you. It's a House bill. It started in the House. How'd that happen?
Bruce is the only one that's willing to do it for us, so we appreciate that.
I understand. Well, you picked a good one to do it for you.
Yep.
Yeah. It's all the floor is yours, gentlemen.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Hope no one's had a full tummy at the lunch, because this will put you right to sleep.
Make
It
sure
is-
we're working off the same number now.
Yes, sir, I'm going to run it off of LC, well, let's make sure that's right. Is that right? This is my working copy.
Because I got a pink one here and you got a
There we
white
go.
one.
Thank you. That was my original draft that I had read. LC 620051.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is a lengthy bill, and by all accounts, it is a boring bill. We've been working on cleaning, streamlining, and cleaning the Georgia Banking Code now. This is at least the 10th year that I've been involved with it, and we've come a long ways, and you are accurately described Senator Mike Hodges as a preeminent banker. He was regulated by the Georgia Department of Banking and Finance, and I don't know quite how long you've been out of it, Senator, but I'm thinking over this last decade or so, you've seen more of a streamlined process in a lot of aspects of the way the department's been trying to operate more efficiently, with no detriments to the depositors, full protections for consumers, and yet streamlining application processes, background checks, trying to get things, and as this bill does, and I'll go through it a little bit more intense, but why have a separate application process for one very similar financial institution, i.e. a bank, and then a different process for a credit union, which is very, very, very similar. So where we can, we're trying to find ways to have streamlined forms and processes. And moving forward, this bill is just continuing that 10-year tradition of trying to tweak a few things. So this is the Georgia Department of Banking and Finance's annual housekeeping bill, and importantly, it's touching bank holding companies, credit unions, merchant acquired limited purpose banks, which is all about credit card processing, foreign bank offices, installment lenders, residential mortgage lenders and brokers, money transmitters, and check cashers, including the Georgia Installment Lenders Association, which is under the DBF now. And it comes with the full support of the Georgia Bankers Association, Community Bankers Association, Georgia Credit Union Affiliates, Mortgage Bankers Association of Georgia, Georgia Financial Services Association, and Georgia Installment Lenders Association. And importantly, all the consumer advocacy groups always work with us and study these bills ahead of time, and it comes without objection from any party. There's no known opposition to the bill. I've got Bo Fears here with me, who is the attorney for the Georgia Department of Banking and Finance, and we're prepared to go line by line or section by section, whatever the chair's pleasure is, to walk you
I'd
through
prefer the
why
clip
so
notes
many-
if you don't mind.
Well, why don't I just let Bo, Mr. Fears, who worked tirelessly throughout the off-season, getting input from all these variously regulated industries to the point where we have a bill that everybody's in agreement on. I'll let him hit the high points for you and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative Williamson. And my name is Bo Fears. I'm with the Georgia Department of Banking and Finance. As Representative Williamson indicated, this is the department's annual cleanup bill. And there are a lot of moving parts here, and if it pleases the committee, I'll just hit on sort of the four major sort of themes that are present in here. And two of them deal with our supervisory side, so the bank side, and that's foreign banks and our merchant acquirer limited purpose banks. And so in 2023, we substantially rewrote and modernized our foreign bank law to make it more competitive with other states. After that law was passed, we then went through a rulemaking process. When we were doing the rulemaking process, we identified a number of areas that could be tweaked and modified in the foreign bank law. So some of it's real simple. We found some incorrect cross-references, cleaned that up. We changed some definitions to align with federal law. We made a couple of other changes. We took applications and we turned them into notices. So, for example, if you had a location in Georgia and you want to move it to another location, instead of applying to us, just submit a notice. So, again, so a lot of streamlining there. And so that's what we did in the foreign bank space. Merchant acquirer limited purpose banks, that was passed 13 years ago, and that, as Representative Williamson indicated, that is a bank charter for payment processors. And it permits them to have direct access to the payment card networks, so direct access to Master and Visa without having to go through a bank or a sponsor bank. There's recently we issued a charter to Fiserv, to a subsidiary of Fiserv, and we think they are going to start processing transactions next quarter. We also have received an application from a subsidiary of another very large payment processor and anticipate we'll have a couple more in the next 6 months. Working through that process, we've identified a couple of significant changes. One, we're trying to clarify that in the event one of these entities is insolvent, we can place it in receivership. We're, instead of having to run a GCIC check on employees, we're letting them run just commercial background checks. And to me, I think most importantly, the merchant funds are held in trust. There's a statutory trust. We changed some language in there that suggested only if it was deposited by the merchant acquirer limited purpose bank, it would be in trust. We've expanded it so if they have a relationship with a third party and it's deposited, it'll still be held in trust. So those are kind of the big changes we have on our supervision side. Other two changes deal on the non-depository side. And so one of the things we've made changes is the felony background check. Right now, if you are a mortgage broker, mortgage lender, check casher, money transmitter, or installment lender, small dollar lender, you cannot have as an owner, an officer, a director, an employee, someone who's been convicted of a felony. What we're doing is we're changing that, and so the prohibition is only going to be an individual who's been convicted of a felony involving a financial crime. But if it's a non-financial crime, the bar will be reduced to 7 years, and that aligns with federal standards as it relates to the SAFE Act when you're dealing with mortgage loan originators. The final piece is limited to mortgage lenders and brokers, and we're enacting what's called the prudential standards on the mortgage side. And then we're taking some of those concepts that apply to covered servicers and applying it to brokers and lenders. And there's three main pieces that you're going to see there. One is there's an audit requirement for lenders, or if you're a broker, you have to provide unaudited financial statements. There are financial condition requirements. So if you're a broker, you have to have $50,000 of net worth. If you're a lender, you have to have $100,000 of net worth or liquidity of $1 million, but that can be satisfied by a warehouse line. And then if you are a servicer, you have to satisfy the standards set up by the FHFA, the Federal Housing Finance Agency. And the idea was to align both federal and state standards so that you're not putting covered servicers in an awkward position of having to satisfy multiple agencies. The final piece is corporate governance standards. So you have to have a board of directors, and if you're not a corporation, a similar entity that has a corporate governance, and you're responsible for that corporate governance framework. And so looking at sort of internal audit, risk assessment, risk programs. So those are the major themes throughout the bill. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
I'm going to take a chairman's moment here for a second. For those of you all on the board here that don't know Mr. Fears, Bo Fears, when I first came into banking chairmanship and got to know him, never once was there not a question I couldn't go to him and get answered. And you did it with such perfectly laid out where a layman could understand it, and I appreciate that. And I want you to say, now, I made light of your bill a while ago. I think the first one you bought me was a heck of a lot longer than this one.
This one's short.
This was short. For you to do what you've done and convince this and get everybody on board and everybody be happy with it, that's an incredible achievement. So, and that's incredible for the banks and for everybody else that's out there making it work. So I just want you to know how much I appreciate that and where you've gone with this thing. And while I've got you, before we ask you, how are our banks in Georgia? Are any issues? Are we stable? I mean, the economy, are we doing, how do you feel about the banks in Georgia in general?
We're doing fantastic.
That's what I wanted to hear.
The banking industry is doing very well right now.
That's what I wanted to hear.
So it's very positive, and there was some scares like a couple of years ago, but no contagion, and the industry is very strong today.
That is excellent. Thank you for that report. Question from the committee. Well, let me tell you how, you got one? What do you, Marty? Number 8. Chairman Hartman, go
More
ahead.
of a question that, in the banking areas. I know in other parts of the country, we've had people who have been debanked because of their political positions and other things of that nature. Does Georgia law or any of this address the debanking of people at all? And just curious from that standpoint. And the second part, we're seeing also what are called fintech banks, which are banks without brick and mortar as far as that. Are we seeing any of that in Georgia? Just those two comments. I'd like to hear your comments on.
Sure. So first off, this does not address debanking, and I
Okay.
think if you go to and this may be answering more than you're asking. I kind of think of the debanking argument as in sort of two components. You have regulatory de-risking or regulatory debanking,
Right.
and then you also have what I would call operational debanking or operational de-risking, right? I think when a regulatory body exerts pressure on an institution to stop banking legal businesses, that is incredibly problematic. And so to the extent that is trying to be addressed at the federal level, I think that is entirely appropriate. I also think that from an operational standpoint, banks need to be able to make decisions on who they want to bank, right? I think that's how it functions. And credit unions, they need to be able to just make those decisions independent of regulatory pressures. Now, to your question on the fintech piece, there are a number of fintech banks that are out there that have relationships, banking services, deposit insurance is provided through relationships they have with banks, right?
Correct.
I am unaware of any Georgia state chartered bank
Okay.
that has a relationship with a fintech bank and they're providing those underlying deposit services. That is not to say that there's not one out there, but I am unaware. But there are some banks, Cross River in New Jersey, Evolve in Arkansas, that is their core model. I assure you, there is not one in Georgia that is their core model.
Thank you. I just was curious, seeing it in other parts of the country. Oklahoma, I know, has one.
Yes.
I believe Arkansas.
Arkansas has two. I can't remember the other one. Tennessee has one.
Right.
So there's about 10 community banks throughout the country. There's one in Washington that is really their foundation of their business plan.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We got one here, one more. Senator Hodges, 11.
Yeah, 11, please. Thank you, Mr. Fears. I've read this. As always, you've done a wonderful job. I just want to get you to comment on something.
Yes, sir.
God bless the credit unions. I love the credit unions. But it in this, it references membership specified in detail and having the same common bond.
What line are you on, sir?
Go to line 70, that was from line 72, but line 78, common bond means that specific, this is how you create the membership of a credit, or the membership. Common bond means that specific relationship of occupation, association, or interest, residence or employment within a well-defined neighborhood, community, or rural district. Employees of a common employer or members of a bona fide cooperative, educational, fraternal, professional, religious, rural, or similar organization, blah, blah. Does that really, is that true?
Senator, I come from a little bit of a banking background, and what I like to describe it is, I think the common bond now is, do you have a heartbeat? But I
Okay,
will not, I'll
well.
let the regulator,
Well,
and I've said that in jest, but it's the walls have apparently, the fence has gotten wider to corral a group of that.
Well, and I'm not, and, you know, credit unions are popular because they do a good job and they represent their memberships. But should we have language about common bonds in our laws when they really don't exist? Or do you think they do?
I think when credit unions were originally established, right, it was very much a community, right, where everyone knew everyone. And so the idea was that part of it, the idea was, you know, you have your employer that's going to pay that, but also you have peer pressure, for lack of a better word, to repay your obligations. The idea of a common bond has since expanded dramatically. So when you're talking, let's just say Fulton County, you know, I don't live in Fulton County, but I live in Gwinnett. I sure don't know everybody in Gwinnett County, right? So you don't really have that sort of common element, that pressure. There are still limitations, though, right? I mean, is it as like it was 100 years ago? Absolutely not. But we don't have a bank that is the state of Georgia, for example. I do believe there is a credit union. It's a federal credit union that has a nationwide field of membership, but I think that might be the only one, versus a bank theoretically can bank anyone in the nation. So there are still limitations, but it is, I will acknowledge, it is nothing like it was 100 years ago.
And you don't think that our laws need to reflect anything?
I think our laws, I think that it is a fair limitation today, I mean, how we interpret it and how we apply it. I think there's still a fair limitation. I think it's still fair and appropriate to limit it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And Mr. Chairman, I apologize for my tongue-in-cheek remarks about that, but because the credit unions do an excellent job. They're worthy competitors.
I'm so proud we have them, and I, you know, we slangily call this the cleanup bill. You know, we use that slang also. This is truly a bill that's necessary to keep everybody in line. And once again, thank you. And you have a question?
I have a question. In regards to removing the notice requirement on foreign banking institutions regarding.
What number are you reading from?
The bullet, I don't know.
Oh, the summary. You're reading
yeah.
from summary?
From the summary, there's a bullet point that says, removes the notice requirement on foreign banking institutions regarding the lack of FDIC insurance on their deposits and credit balances. If you could explain the rationale behind that.
Yeah, what I removed was simply the cross-reference because the cross-reference was incorrect to federal law. But the requirement that they still have those disclosures and limitations on FDIC deposit insurance is still in the bill. So it's statutorily still required. Cross-reference was just wrong.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to, I know time, we're going
Sure.
to move on, but I do think it's very important that we know that, restate the fact that we're broadening opportunity for people in Georgia that might have made a mistake in college and gotten a felony drug
Exactly.
conviction to go to work. If it's a non-financial crime, that's going to drastically expand the financial opportunities for people that have had a mistake in their past to enjoy good, high-paying jobs with career opportunities.
Everybody deserves a second chance. Thank you, Representative Williams, for bringing the bill. And anybody else on the committee want to speak before I ask anybody in the audience? Anybody else? Anybody in the audience want to speak for or against this bill or know anything about it? Well, folks, we have a cleanup bill before us, what I like to call that. If there's no other thing, I'll entertain a motion on this, on the banking bill. Motion to pass by Senator Hodges. Second by, we got both of them here, Senator Beard and Senator Harbin. Any discussion before we go any further? I'd like to point out, since John Kennedy got called away to the governor's office, he will carry this bill. I will assign that to him, and I just wait live is. I'm just letting him know when you see him, he will carry this bill. So he leaned over and said, they called me and said, I got to go to the governor's office. Well, you going to carry this bill? He looked back, he said, okay.
I'll tutor him.
You can tutor him a little bit. He'll need mentoring. I'll try you. He'll need mentoring. Okay. No other discussion? Raise your hand. All those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimously. Thank you,
Thank you.
Representative Williams. Thank you both here for coming.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Chairman.
Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank
Appreciate
you very
your time.
much. Thank you. Anybody else got anything to bring before the committee before we adjourn? We're glad to have you, Senator Harbin. We're glad to have you with us. Senator Mangan, we're glad to have you with us, sir. You don't get the fine. The first day is, you get out of jail card on the first one. Second one, if you don't bring food for everybody, we're going to talk to you. That's the way it works. Anybody else in the committee, anybody? We stand adjourned. Quick, easy, and get her done, right?